What's up, guys? Back again with three takeaways after a 2-2 draw against the Seattle Sounders. Jackson Popkin, Henry here. Let's just go ahead and get into it. Number one, we had a debut. Enea Mihaj, new center back signing, came on in the second half for his Atlanta United debut. Some high moments, some not great moments. I'll go ahead and give what I saw from him. I saw a guy that, as advertised, he can play those accurate long balls. He literally, I think the first touch of the ball was him playing an absolute dime to Jamal Tiare. And it wasn't like a switch of play exactly, which, I mean, those are relatively easy when it comes along. It was like a forward lobbed through ball that I think Tiare wasn't even really expecting because he didn't control it. But if he did, it would have been a pretty decent chance. It would have been almost through on goal, pretty much. So it's good to see that he's pulling those long balls, that he is able to execute that. Again, this team kind of likes to jump forward in that way. So it's good to see him already start to do that. And then as far as the defensive part, he does look committed. We talked to him after the game, obviously, in stoppage time. They had that very unfortunate uh, cross into the box that ended up being a goal. And he talked a lot about, they have to improve in several aspects. He kind of called out Derek Williams, said that he needs to do better in his duels. Derek Williams, the guy that was, I think, right behind De Rosario and didn't really get into the air enough to clear the ball or to really challenge for it. And so kind of calls him out there a little bit. But for me, it's an overall positive for Mihai. Didn't really have any big blunders, but what did you think of his debut?
Yeah, glad we got to see the first debut of hopefully many to come in the next calendar year at least. Um, I too thought that his passing ability became very apparent. Was very much a high point of Enea's debut. I think his mentality, especially from what we heard in the locker room, was really good. He's here to compete, for sure. He is here to really challenge the center backs that are already here, the center backs that are joining. Um, he definitely was very aware of himself in that post game interview, to where he took a lot of blame on himself, as well as Derek. He acknowledged the partnership between the two. Both he step up. He said that he could only really speak for himself first and foremost, and that he needs to be better. I asked him about his first experience playing at MLS, and he pointed out a lot of transition moments that that the team was experiencing late on in that match, and that he is working to adapt to that. We saw him get into some scraps with Jesus Ferreira. He's definitely not afraid to get into the match and make an impact. And I'm looking forward to hopefully more impacts from him as he finds his legs with the team.
Impacts from him and new players potentially. We ran into new signing Juan Berrocal down in Concourse, exiting the team locker room. And the chat from a source says there's another new guy somewhere.
Stars and spikes, this.
Oh yeah, so potentially, potentially one of those new signing, well, the newest one that was, I guess, rumored today was is Mikens, potentially Leo Alfonso. But we don't know, so we'll see what happens. That announcement yet to come. But we'll get to our second takeaway. We kind of led into it a little bit. It's that defensive collapse in the second half, right? And it's happened in so many games at this point. I think the stat is that there is a minus 15 goal differential now in the first 15 minutes of the second half of the season, which tells you that this team just comes out of the locker room with a different mentality. I guess they have great first halves, and then they just erase. They have like the Men in Black memory wipe, and it just all goes away, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, what are we doing?" Because it was a different. They came out differently for the second interview. First half, they came out on the front foot. They were attacking. They were pressing. They were, you saw high energy. They created great chances. Second half, Seattle comes out, and they're the team that seems on top. They're the team that's really imposing the rhythm. And to be fair, you understand game state. They need to push because they're down a goal, and ultimately they get a goal from a big transition moment, right? That Stian Gregerson goes to challenge for a header, completely misses and leaves Derby into a 3v1 situation, which he ends up losing, and that is Pedro de la Vega's goal. And then at late in stoppage time, you are looking for the winning goal, and ends up getting scored in your net, right? Off of a cross into the box. Literally, Ronald Hernandez taken off, Brooks Lennon put on at right back, and instantly cross into the box, header score. It's not good enough. And again, Atlanta ends up going on to tie the game. But really, you saw from Alexey Miranchuk's reaction, that should have been the game winning goal, not the game tying goal. It really takes a lot of feeling out of it. But at the end of the day, you don't have a complete performance against Atlanta United. Second half, you have problems in the defense. Well, what did you think of that aspect of the game, Jens?
I thought Ronnie Dyla's post-game comments were interesting on the topic. Obviously, it's a question that's been asked of him after just about every match the past few weeks. Like what is going on in these second halves? And he today um, turned to the team's fatigue. He said at the end of the first half, the team started to look tired. And coming out from that second half, they don't have that same initial energy, same initial hunger that they have coming out in the first half. And we've seen the past few matches that first 5-10 minutes of the first half is pedal to the floor, energy, um, and we saw that again today. Ultimately, get the first opening goal, an own goal, but well worked spell of possession for Atlanta that brought about that own goal. And in the second half, you don't see anything close to that. And that fatigue to end that first half, carrying it in the locker room, starting the second half, I think the team, because of this trend, has become very timid to start second halves. And they are aware that, yeah, maybe these second halves, like the trend is there of conceding all these goals. It's in the front of your mind. Don't concede, don't concede. So you are ceding possession to the other team. And that was another point that Ronnie made post game of team needs to have more possession. You are just giving the ball away and then bunkering in defense, just desperate to not concede. And that's not a good way to play the game. You're bunkering, you have no chance, and you're making yourself more tired by doing that. When you're so timid, you're just letting the Sounders have the ball. You're chasing the ball for so much longer, and you're just going to run yourself into the ground and ultimately concede. And that's what we saw happen. Um, Unfortunate for Stian coming back from injury to misread that ball and send Seattle off to the races. But yeah, it's something the team needs to continue to work on. It's a mentality that needs to change. Uh, Otherwise, we're going to see even more of the same from these second halves.
Now, interesting bit going into the locker room, we ran into Ronnie Dyla, who this is a first for me. I'd never actually seen a manager in the locker room when we, media got to go in to talk to players. Obviously, they're in there for the team talk and stuff beforehand, but I'd never actually seen previous managers that happen. But Ronnie Dyla sat down and talked with each one of the center backs individually. He started with Derek Williams, then Stian Gregerson, and finally Enea Mihaj. All three center backs played in the game, and just talked to them. And it seemed like he was giving them kind of feedback on their performance. He was kind of giving them indications, potentially breaking down some of what happened on the two goals that they conceded. Keep in mind, Ronnie Dyla himself was a center back in his playing career. So who better to give advice in those scenarios? But yeah, I'm interested to see what effect that has. I think it should be somewhat inspiring that your manager is in there and is kind of talking to you a little bit and trying to figure out what happens and kind of giving you those indications. And I think they should have that level of respect as a former player. Um, so we'll see what effect that has, if any, on their next game. And then the final takeaway, the combinations in the wide areas, which worked out very, very well today. Specifically, when you look at the right side, Ronald Hernandez at right back and Miguel Almiron at right wing. Second game in a row that they have started together, and you saw really, really good combinations between the two. A very good understanding of what each player is going to do, the runs they're going to make, spaces they're going to get into, and where you need to play the ball to take the most advantage. And in the first half, you really saw that to great effect, creating the overlaps, really finding spaces inside the box to put the ball in dangerous areas. And it worked very, very well. Of course, on the other side, you also had Pedro Amador and Luke Brennan working very, very well. Uh, Again, creating overloads, finding these little runs into the box and pockets that they can exploit, which I thought was very creative. And a lot of the threat came from the wide area. And they did very, very well in that respect. More so in the first half, obviously in the second half, as we talked about. But I think it's good to see that start to develop. Before the season started, I'd written an article about Ronnie Dyla and how his teams usually operate. And a big tenet of that is using overloads in the wide areas, really putting an emphasis on creating chances from out wide and, generating cutbacks from those opportunities. So it's good to finally see that come to fruition. But yeah, what did you think about how those wide partnerships are developing, especially in this game?
I think you can look at the substitutions made in the second half to kind of revert the team back to previous partnerships with Pedro and Sava on the left, and then Brooks Lennon and Miguel on the right. And we saw that not work as well in the second half than the partnerships we saw to start the match first. We've continued to see good performances from Luke Brennan. He's not afraid to make really good runs in behind, take players on, use speed, and we've seen Ronald Hernandez and Guillermo, Tyler mentioned it post game. Their relationship is very, very good between the two of them. And so that translates to a better on the field relationship where you have this chemistry, you have this knowledge of where the other's going to be, work with each other. Um, I know we saw on the other side of the field with Amador and Brennan, maybe not as much of that chemistry at points. There'd be times where Pedro seems to cling to the ball a bit more, um, and did put in some real pretty good crosses from the half space. Um, one especially that was just a step too far ahead of Latte Um, but yeah, I think we've found a much better duo on each side of the field than we've had so far this season. And the more you can play those players together, the more that chemistry will grow, that bond can increase. Uh, Tyler's comment on that post game, of course, was that we need all the players to be able to go at any moment in any combination, which is true. You're going to need that versatility to be a successful team for sure. But when you don't have that and you're looking for immediate improvement, that's the way to do it. Find your best working combinations on the field, um, let them develop and grow with each other, and you'll see a lot more of these good chance creation. And I wonder if that is the reason we saw a better, I don't know if you want to call it partnership, but between Miggy and Alexey Miranchuk, they weren't they were better working with each other in this game. And I'm wondering if that's due to the relationship they had with the other player in their respective That's the field where Biggie could lie on um, to kick the ball on to where he's not dribbling inside that time and getting into the launches position and causing the kind of break. I thought that was better tonight. That could be a solution to what we've been seeing. Yeah.
With Miguel Almiron and Ronald Hernandez, you really only have to observe them for a little bit to know that they have a very special bond. They're basically besties. I mean, you see them together uh, all the time. They walked out of the locker room together. They're every time you see them stepping off a bus, they're together. They go out to training, they're together. So really, a very good bond. And I think, I mean, it's the meme, right? The power of friendship. But I think that does have an effect. I mean, when you become good friends with someone on the squad, especially someone that plays in a very close area to you, it you understand them better as a person, as a player. You kind of identify their patterns or tendencies, and that can help you shape your game when you are playing with them. And so I think that has been a main factor in that partnership working extraordinarily well, really, these past couple of games. And I would say, even to an extent, we saw Matt Edwards and Luke Brennan in the last game on the left side. They were both homegrowns. They both came up through the academy. They understand each other very, very well. They've had time to play with each other, uh, uh, you know, kind of build off of each other in that sense. And honestly, I think that partnership works even better in Amdor with Brennan, in my opinion. I thought they were more dangerous linking up on the left side. But obviously, decisions up to Ronnie Dyla, who he decides to deploy at each of those locations, each of those positions, and which partnerships he sees as beneficial to the game plan there. So I'm interested to see what happens on Wednesday when Atlanta United starts its third Leagues Cup campaign and looks for its first ever win in the tournament against Necaxa of Liga MX here in the Benz. I believe kickoff is at 7:30. Uh, but yeah, that tournament starts and they have that game, then they play on that Saturday, and then on Wednesday. So hopefully this Wednesday they give me a birthday surprise because I'm very upset if they don't. And who knows, we might even see a debut from another center back who may or may not have his visa, given that he was here. We'll see. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of Free Takeaways. We will see you next time.
See ya.